Hello and welcome to Museums Showoff. I'm Rachel Suhami, the producer, and this is the third edition of our online show, which is really exciting. Now, let me introduce you to your host this evening. It's the marvellous and amazing Naomi Paxton.
Welcome to Museums Showoff. I'm your host, Naomi Paxton. It's our third online show and it's October 2020. How did that happen? I hope you are all keeping safe and well. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back if you've joined us before, either at the live shows or online, and welcome for the first time for those of you who are joining us for it. We are talking tonight about topics including, but not limited to, LGBTQ heritage, real fake museum objects, unexpected musical adaptations, the creation of lockdown resources. We've got advice about how to stay positive and connected during these strange times. We've got at least one vibrant ginger beard and at least one knee being thoroughly licked by a very cute dog. We're also talking about the wearing of many hats, both literally and metaphorically. You can share the love on Twitter. You can find us or tag us at Museums Showoff and also using the hashtag Museums Showoff. So let's start. How did people in the past cope with living through a pandemic? And how can a museum about the history of medicine keep connected and engaging its publics whilst its doors are shut? Here to tell us, please welcome to your screens, Monica Walker.
We are inside of the oldest operating theatre in Europe. It dates back to 1822, and quite gruesome operations have taken place here before the advent of anesthesia and antiseptics. It used to be part of All St. Thomas's Hospital, and as such, our entire space is dedicated to the history of medicine. And under the circumstances in which we find ourselves, I think that we had a fairly important role to play in terms of providing certain services for our community. We really wanted to be able to ensure not only that people will remember us, of course, as we close down our doors, but we also wanted to ensure that as a medical museum, that if there was anything that we can do for the people at home that were in lockdown and could not go anywhere, whatever they were engaging with us, that we will be there for them to the best of our ability. And we came out with some crazy and amazing ideas in order for us to actually do this, which we're rather proud of, to be honest. And I think that that's what I wanted to share with all of you today. So what the heck did we do? Let me tell you what we did. So first thing that we did was to highlight our amazing space and of course our amazing collection. Then of course our education team went above and beyond, trying to create resources for all of those desperate parents out there who really needed additional resources to help their kids during the lockdown pursue their studies. Of course, they came up with resources on our website that any parent or any person trying to learn more about the history of medicine could access, and they're still there, so please, by all means, go and check it out. It's gonna be fun. No, it's not. It's gonna be horrific. It's the history of medicine. Come on, like seriously, it's awful. But on the positive side, hey, we are making it. One of our kind of like little proud moment was to share a little bit of an uplifting story from different frontliners that lived through horrible pandemics like the plague in London, or for example the cholera pandemic in the 19th century, so that we could actually look into it and think, okay, so they've done that in that time period and they didn't even have the resources that we have today, and yet somehow they made it through. And I think that a lot of our nuggets or bits and pieces of information about frontliners or history of pandemics and things like that were meant to be this very uplifting, positive post where we were trying to learn more about, how people faced these kind of difficulties and how can we continue to be resilient today under the circumstances of COVID-19, and that was really an interesting kind of topic. And I think that one of my favorite things that we did I know this is gonna sound crazy, but it was a lot of fun, was trying to figure out things for people back home to do. So we went back to the Victorian era and found out, what did they do indoors? Well, they had exercising machines and they did indoor exercising, so we share that a bit. And of course, besides trying to be hygienic, besides exercising at home, we came out with this crazy idea of also sharing with everybody Victorian parlor games. And I have to say that was a fun one. I mean, it's not that we encourage people to take like newspapers, blindfold them, like lay them one next to the other and start like screaming and trying to hit each other with the actual newspaper. That's actually called Where Are You, Moriarty? So it was a lot of fun to actually see that people were remembering, that people were really engaging with us throughout this time, especially with the parlor games, and of course, our star, or jigsaw puzzles. We made a Monday challenge that is still going on today, and we made it so people will share their timings, like how fast they finished the puzzles, and obviously each puzzle was a still life from the museum, an image of our collection, of our space, a way to continue to share who we are and what we do with everybody behind that screen. And it was really beautiful to actually listen to the comments where people saying, thank you so much for this, you know, you're keeping my mind active, and of course that was something that just to read that, obviously, as you know, social media manager, you're just kind of like, oh, people are doing the jigsaw puzzles, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. All in all, we increase our digital offer. We make sure that people have something to read, something to do, something to entertain themselves with. Just basically do something during the time that everybody was under lockdown. And yeah, I think that's what we wanted to share with you.
Thank you, Monica, and I will check out those jigsaw puzzles on the Old Operating Theatre website. And now, I promised you the wearing of many different hats, and here, wearing most of them, please welcome to your screens, Sophie Small.
Thanks, Naomi. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophie. I work in museums, and I'm what people seem to call an early career professional, which basically means I haven't got that far yet. Technically, I've been in this sector now for 8 years, because I started volunteering as a teenager. And after nearly a decade of voluntary and temporary and part-time experience, I've got used to the fact that to get stuff done in this sector, you have to be able to wear a lot of different hats. We pick up weird practical skills we never knew we'd need. We worry constantly about development, about driving up income and keeping costs down. Some of us switch from one organisation to another and back with ridiculously complex diaries. And in my case, I can be talking to 3-year-olds 1 minute and fancy donors the next, all the time wondering how much glue is still stuck in my hair. Lockdown has made me extra aware of this, throwing out more challenges and giving me a lot of time to take stock. And it can take a toll to be balancing so much at once. But one of the best tools I've found to deal with it is just to have a bit of a laugh. So I thought I'd take you through my many hats. Literally. Like this. Yeah, it's a lot of hats. My witchy hat is one that quite a lot of people know. An interest in history of magic and the random luck of a couple of jobs, like the one I was doing here, have led to a bit of a preoccupation with Halloween. And in this hat, I do the impossible. Once in a job interview, I had to explain about a pumpkin carving activity I'd run, and ended up discussing the drill attachments that we'd used to hollow over 1,000 pumpkins in a matter of days. They were called pumpkin destroyers, imported from the US, of course. By the time I left that room, the interviewer had admitted that I would be remembered as the Pumpkin Girl. So if I ever need a superhero name, that's probably not a great one. So let's move on. The straw boater. This is the hat I wear when I'm front of house with visitors, explaining exhibits and acting as an ambassador for the past. It's solid, dependable, ready at a moment's notice, and makes for a good photo like this. Now the next hat's a little bit different. The next hat's more specific. Ta-da! It's nothing to do with the Venetians. It's just a handmade effect. This is the hat for my crafty self. The self that can create any prop that's needed. The self that can invent an activity at an hour's notice. This is one that's been with me since my earliest volunteering days. It's beginning to look a lot like I've turned into a reindeer. Now reindeer, Santa, magic elf. It's a common role for us to play. And this is the one where every little bit of pep comes out. Every ounce of enthusiasm. This is the one where a kid that's not 1 year old yet is your target audience. Because they believe. This is the hat that comes with all the magic. It gets tiring. Trust me. Now, we're left in my trusty tennis visor. This, you might say, does not look like a particularly museum-y hat. It doesn't have a theme, historical or seasonal. It's just practical. This keeps the rain off my glasses. I can cycle in it. I can get work done outdoors. I remember where things are and when they need to be done. This is fundamental. It always has to be underneath the others. And that takes energy. And then somewhere, under the last hat, there's just me, with my messy hair. The thing about wearing all these different hats all the time is that at some point we have to be able to take them off. We do leave the museums, sometimes, we promise. So who are we then? It's easy to get our identities entirely wrapped up in our work, so it's good sometimes to take the hats off. Thanks for putting up with me, and I'd love to hear from you too. What hats are you wearing, and how do I balance them better? Get in touch on Twitter or by email, and enjoy the rest of the show. Bye!
Balancing hats can be tricky. Thank you for sharing your experiences, Pumpkin Girl, Sophie Small. And now, what does the word curator mean to you, and how is it used differently? Let's ask somebody who's done some research about it. Please welcome to the Museum Showoff screen, Ellie Miles.
Hello Museum Showoff. I am beaming into you from Thursday last week. It's very nice to be here tonight. I'm going to present to you the findings from a very in-depth research project which I've been carrying out over what is in fact the last 8 years, conducted, in fact, as all the best research is, on Tumblr. So I've been looking at curating the curators, the different uses of the words curator, curate, curation, curating and curated that have been popping up. So it's been fun. The first one that we looked at, I say we, it's been me and then a couple of guest posts every now and again, which has been really nice. The first one that made me kind of think, okay, I want to stop and look at this for a little bit longer, was an announcement in the press in which Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen, off of Changing Rooms, for those who were paying attention in the 1990s, was announced as the creative curator of the Blackpool Illuminations. A wacky thing. Some people were saying, being a bit snobby about it, saying, oh, but it was kind of a surprising use and an interesting adoption of the term. So, yeah, did what everyone did back in 2012 and started a Tumblr. And yeah, so I kind of thought this is a weird use of the word, but it recognises curators as dealing with 3D space, not just stories or narratives or art. Because it's kind of pronounced as the creative curator, it kind of implies that other curatorial work isn't creative, which I'd probably quibble with. And then, slightly rudely, I've written, use of Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen may have discouraged trendier types from using the word. Harsh. And then I've written, curator is the only named individual in the process of creating the illuminations. And so that, I suppose, was a beef with curators in general at the time. So other uses that came up were, this was another really interesting one I thought, was about the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Cool Hunting, which I think is a brand. Rubin's example he didn't claim expertise. He made an argument that was about a process of filtering and the need to be selective. So I thought that was. Then one of my favourite fashion blogger reads, Susie Bubble, was also speaking at that conference, was featured in that lineup. Now, she kind of seemed to be a little bit wary of using the term for her own work as a blogger, because whenever she referred to it on her blog, she always sort of said curator in scare quotes. So she was maybe a little bit more cynical about the word being applied to her. Another interesting use that was applied to somebody else was this piece before Corbyn became leader. And this took a slightly different model to the kind of aspirational, trendy one, and looked much more at the curator as caretaker who was maintaining or growing or caring for something. However, it also got quite carried away and talked about the curator as godlike, as breathing life into things, about empowering, restarting and reigniting, which isn't something that I always hear about at work. Another one that came up was suggested to me by Ali Boyle, like ATP or the big events at the South Bank Centre where they have a sort of celebrity curator come and do a cameo. So I was thinking about what does it mean when someone does that, and what's being understood in the word curator, and it's quite interesting to curate your own work. It's quite prominently in a lineup, especially given that when the David Bowie exhibition happened at the V&A, Bowie went on record to say that he was not a curator. So people like the word, people think curator has positive associations. Well, that's really good. There really is a joy and pleasure in devoting time to things and subjects that you love and sharing them with people. A lot of these uses that have been described are about things like power and authority. So they're two things I'm generally not well disposed to. My favourite museum curators definitely don't have all the answers or know everything about the collections that they look after. What my favourite curators have is questions. They have questions and research skills. They're interested in stuff and they want to find out more and share it. Well, curatorial expertise isn't something you achieve at the end of a master's course or a volunteer placement or anything like that. It's not a thing you can put on the shelf next to your adulting award. Apologies, the hyperbole and a half. It's a process, a silly, messy process. So next time someone tells you they curated their ER party or whatever, don't be a dick about it.
Good advice for life generally. Thank you, Ellie Miles, and thank you for that presentation too. And now, has Britain got queer talent? Well, yes, I mean, you're looking at some of it here, but there's also so much more. Please welcome to your screens, all-round brilliant museum, engagement, queer history person, Dan Vo.
Hello and welcome to the Queer Heritage and Collections Network. Tonight we have Britain's Got Queer Talent. Yay! 4 collections will go head to head for the major prize. Your votes will count, so get ready to tweet away. But the judges say will be absolutely final. So are you ready to find out who is the queerest in the land? Let's get started. Woo!
The National Trust, known for walks in the countryside, cream teas and posh people's houses. Notorious for rainbow lanyards. When it comes to queer history, we've got it all. From ancient Hadrian on his wall in Northumberland to Peter in Virginia getting it on in Kent. The Trust puts on a show. Up to Wales to visit the dancing Marcus, who produced plays by Wilde and danced erotically, like a snake, in his very own Gaiety Theatre, the Freddie Mercury of the 19th century. He built a theatre in his house and called it the Gaiety. You just can't outgay that. Or head to Small Hythe, where a menage a trois of suffrage feminists fought from the stage and the theatre in their barn. So peep behind the curtain, put on your rainbows and vote for the National Trust. Because when it really comes down to it, is there anything camper than a cream tea?
Gosh, a few years ago, I was part of the team that brought together Pride of Place, England's LGBTQ heritage, with Historic England. And we had the modest goal of mapping all of queer history everywhere in England for all of time. Where we really stand out, I think, is we jumped into the future. One woman anticipated a place that she was going to make a little queer with her partner. So you can imagine what they were going to bring to our knowledge about the queer past, present, and future. I think one thing that I should let you all in on is that queer historians, we don't respect time and place. We jump around with wild abandon. It's one of those things, it's part of the training. So let's jump around a little bit. Join me, friends, at La Caverne, a men's club in Soho in the 1950s. You can also see this artwork here, which is some rather attractive young men, a bit chiseled. I'm sure it's all perfectly innocent. Still in London, we're at the Colony Rooms. This is Muriel Belcher and her friends at the Soho establishment that was famous for decades. She was known as a really loud lesbian. The things that she would say would make your toes curl as you walked up the stairs. This is actually a map of the public conveniences, the toilets of London. It ended up being a bit of a cruising guide. Speaking today on behalf of Historic England, we are the queerest of them all. We've given you clubs, underground, private homes, and now a map of the toilets of London. I mean, you can't compete with that.
English heritage has a lot of queer history related to it, from Duchess of Devonshire, Georgiana at Chiswick House, to Lord Beauchamp at Walmer Castle, to Elred of Rievaulx at Rievaulx Abbey, to Celia and Paget and Edward II and Piers Gaveston at Eltham Palace, and my favorite one, Gwen Lally of Battle Abbey. Gwen Lally was a pageant master. She was also an actress and a male impersonator. She was known for her really, really lavish and outlandish style of dress. Lally did this throughout the 20th century, and this was incredibly unusual for a woman to be leading these giant performances and historical reenactments. The first performance she was involved with, or pageant, was in 1907, and the last one was in 1952. In 1954, she received an OBE for her efforts, which makes her pretty cool. I think the queer stories that we can learn about by visiting English heritage sites and visiting these amazing blue plaques around London mean that people from all over the country and all over the world can look into and find really important moments from our queer history that speak to them and help them feel a sense of belonging and help understand where we've come from.
Hello, it's me. King James I of England, 6th of Scots. You might remember me from such wonderful events as the Gunpowder Plot, or perhaps you've read my international bestseller, The King James Bible. LGBTQ+ history can be found in all the beautiful historic royal palaces. Edward II once proclaimed that he had an unbreakable bond of love with Piers Gaveston. Queen Anne, she was broken-hearted when Sarah Churchill's allies wrote a tawdry ballad about her favourite, Abigail Masham. I think it went, when as Queen Anne of great renown, Great Britain's sceptre swayed, besides the church she dearly loved, a dirty chambermaid. Oh, that's scandalous. I hope there's no bairns in the audience tonight. That would make a good film, that would. Oh, and let's not forget the headline event, myself, for it was said that the throne of England passed from King Elizabeth to Queen James. Vote historic royal palaces. One cannot have queer history without kings, queens, and all those in between. And don't forget, long live Queen James. And they've asked me at the end just to do an explosive finish. Kapow!
Well, hello. We've been expecting you. Those are some mighty queer collections competing for the prize there. But I've got a feeling there are even more queer collections out there. If you know of some and you can help us, you know what to do. Contact the network. Until then.
Here he is, my main man, George Villiers.
Ah, fantastic choices and stories there. Thank you to Dan Vo and to everybody involved in that presentation. See, I told you there'd be a vibrant ginger beard and a cute dog licking a knee. I'd like to look like Gwen Lally in that gorgeous top hat. But I think my vote would have to go to the, as a suffrage theatre historian, to the thespian menage a trois down at Small Hythe Place in Kent. And now, creepy dolls, haunted hands, locked up puppets. Ooh, does that intrigue you? It should. Please, welcome to your screens, fellow magician and marvellous man, Ashton Carter.
Hi, I'm Ashton Carter, magician, storyteller and curator of Mr. Punch's Cabinet of Curiosities. I'd like to thank our host for that fabulous introduction. Mr. Punch's Cabinet of Curiosities is perhaps one of the smallest museums and entertainment attractions in the country. At its smallest it measures just 3 metres square and is full of strange objects, haunted artefacts and curios. Mr. Punch's Cabinet of Curiosities harks back to the sideshows and tent shows of the early 20th century, with a big nod to P.T. Barnum and the original Cabinets of Curiosities displaying the natural wonders collected by wealthy merchants. Within our collection we have objects that are real, fake, and what we like to call real fakes. Things that never were. My brief talk today is a provocation. It's a provocation that asks, can we be more playful in how we present our collections? And can we get people to critically think about what they are looking at so that they can decide for themselves what they're seeing to an extent? Because at the moment there's so much fake news around the world and it's increasingly difficult to spot the real from the fake. We've used Mr. Punch's Cabinet of Curiosities to pose those questions. So I'm going to pose this provocation as a series of a little quiz. So here are some of our more popular exhibits. And I pose the question, is it real? Is it fake? Or is it a real fake? Our first item is Mr. Punch himself, locked forever in his booth for a crime he committed in 1966. He stands outside our attraction and gathers people in. He speaks to their curiosity. And it's always nice to see a wife-beater behind bars. But is Mr. Punch, locked in his booth, real, fake, or a real fake? All of our objects and our exhibits have a story and an object. In this case, Mr. Punch, as the main object, is real. He's from my Punch and Judy show. Everything else is fake. Our second object is called Dorothy. And she was owned by a child who tragically died in a barn fire along with 3 of her siblings. Dorothy survived by being wrapped in the child's apron. She is a classic example of a haunted doll. Dorothy is, as I'm sure most of you pressed, fake. But as soon as you put that story, and that tinge of sadness, and the idea that it is haunted, you create an object of wonder, an object that makes people stop and pause. Object number 3 is our hand of glory. It was said that if you took the left hand of a murdered man and treated it in the correct alchemical way, it would gain magical powers that a thief may use to render a house asleep. Our hand of glory is one of those wondrous things in our collection, like many, where the story is 100% real. Ours is a fake. Our fourth object is internationally famous. It is a Fiji mermaid, purported to have been first put on show by P.T. Barnum. A Fiji Fiji mermaid is what we playfully call a real fake. Fiji mermaids do exist, they're real objects. And this is really a Fiji mermaid. But Fiji mermaids are entirely made up. They're entirely fake. So I come back to the question that in our exhibits, is there a space for us to help develop critical thinking? To help people work out for themselves what is real and what is fake? What is perhaps real fake? Can we be playful in the way that we present things without losing our ethical stance? Without telling outright lies, but being very open with being playful? We're lucky in the Cabinet of Curiosities that we are, at our core, both a mini museum and an entertainment attraction. We can play a little bit fast and loose, but I think in the wider collections, perhaps there's space for this sort of playfulness. Well, thank you for your time. I'm Ashton Carter, magician, storyteller, and curator of Mr. Punch's Cabinet of Curiosities.
Thank you, Ashton Carter, for showing us those objects from your Cabinet of Curiosities. Next up, how can organisations within the museums and heritage sectors embed inclusive practice in their work? How can they find support to do that? Please welcome to your screens, Becky Morris.
Hi, I'm Becky Morris, and I'm the Director of DCN and also Associate Consultant for Embed. I'm going to tell you a story. So, when I was 6 years old, I was first taken to a museum, and it was one of the Nationals. And for me, at that time, museums were magical places, wonderful places, in terms of objects that were made by people who were collected by people and used by people. You could read all the books you could get your hands on, but here was something that was actually there and something that was actually used. And for me, that is something as storytellers that museums are unique about. But also, whose stories are we telling? What about how we're telling them? And one of the reasons why I'm talking to you about this is because of the work I do at DCN and Embed. I'm a collections officer, actually, by trade. That was my specialism. And when I went to Leicester, I was going to be in museum education. But one thing that's always been about for me is our public messaging, how we support our visitors, and how we develop our own working practices so museums can be for everyone, but also that we can shine a light on what we do best, what we can improve on, and also what we can do to meet society in respect to how it changes and how we react through strategy and planning to ensure that we can be the very best that we can be and getting it right for all of us. As all of us get older, our needs change. We know that we will need good seating, we will need to wear glasses, we will also may need to use lifts. Some of us, like I was at 6 years old, didn't know that I was dyslexic. So when I read a label, I could never understand it in respect to recalling that information. But another thing as well was I didn't know I had it until I was 23. In the end, there will be people who we need in our workforce to develop our own working practice, but also to use our talents and our assets as people creatively and supportively. DCN and Embed are here for all of you, no matter who you represent in terms of your organisation or agency, to ensure that you can be intersectionally inclusive. During the lockdown, we've produced a number of resources to help you in respect to allyship, workplace passports to support people who may be shielding, the reopening recommendation service, and also in respect to mental health. We're also supporting a number of organisations in respect of webinars, and also we've been talking to a lot of people in what the post-lockdown society should look like in respect to intersectional inclusion. We work across sectors, so we've joined up with a number of organisations across the country to ensure that museums get it right first time, but also what support you need in order to get there as a constructive critical friend, and how we can help you in identifying what your practice is and how good it is, but also the things that need improving and what those priorities should be for you. In the end, we're here to help you and here to support you. But just think about it in respect to all of us. We need to change because we weren't as great as we were. We weren't great in the first place. But this is an opportunity now to really think about what we're doing and to support ourselves in navigating through this terrible situation and create better practice for everyone. Do get in touch. We're here to help.
Thank you, Becky Morris, for that presentation and for all that you are doing to help support positive change. And now, somebody else who is also keen to help. How can he help? Let's find out. Please welcome to your screens, Zak Mensah.
Hi, I'm Zak Mensah. Saying yes to everything is a really good strategy until you can afford to say no when it comes to learning new skills and finding opportunities. Always through how saying my favourite tip, how can I help, really did work for me throughout my career and led me to the museum sector. Maybe it can work for you too. My first job at 16 was at Burger King. It was the year of the Will Smith film, The Wild Wild West, which naturally they played on loop, over and over and over. Quickly it became annoying, so looking for ways to avoid being near the music, I asked my boss, how can I help? As a way to hopefully get away from the music. He quickly gave me all the jobs he didn't like to do himself. I washed his car, learned how to do stock takes in a giant walk-in freezer. I turned up at like 6 a.m. to offload all the stock from the lorry. I learned all the ways people steal. I learned about customer service. I learned how to train people and basically, unbeknownst to me, how to run a multi-million-pound business over the course of a summer. All from asking, how can I help? This would prove handy years later when at Bristol Museums. During university, I didn't study museum studies or art history. I studied multimedia computing, and I had a random encounter of the nerdy kind. A particular tutor needed to run some evening classes teaching people how to make intro sequences to DVDs and DVD menus. Remember them? I had just completed a short course run by the tutor. I don't think he really wanted to work all day and then through the evening, so I said, how can I help? And just like that, I became a substitute evening tutor, despite only having completed the course myself days before, and I even got paid. I quickly learned part of being an expert is being someone who just needs to know more than the person standing in front of them. I then used the students' questions as a way to learn more myself about what real people want to get done and not the hypothetical stuff in the 1,000-page manual. My tutoring experience gave me the bug for training people and led to some fun freelance work and learning how to help people solve their real problems. The staff development training allowed me to learn lots of digital skills myself and eventually led to consultancy at HLF. That included digital training, and that is where I discovered museums employ people to do a range of jobs. I jumped at the chance to be a digital person at Bristol, as their job advert and paperwork was so bad it was clear they needed some help. I then applied, how can I help, to everything I could. A good starting point is always do what other people don't want to do or don't have time to do. This allowed me to grow a digital team and then get the gig as head of transformation. The whole job is a giant set of spinning plates born from how can I help. We need digital skills? I'll sort that. We need to find new ways to save money? I'll help do that. We need to find effective ways of working? Why not? We need to make money, check, and so on and so forth. Many of the people who contact me for help have done so because I've either helped someone they know or I've stood before them and said I'm serious about helping others, especially small museums or volunteer-run places that have no option but to do everything themselves. Taking informed wild guesses can really help us in this sector. I love helping other people, and it just so happens to have let me have a career to date and given me super valuable skills for my next journey. So, how can I help?
It's a definite yes from me. Thank you, Zak Mensah. We end Museums Showoff tonight with a presentation no spoilers. I'll let your next act tell you. Please welcome to your screens, Nick Harris.
Hey there, my name's Nick. I produce the One House podcast with Shushma Jansari, and I make audio, little animations, and a lot of YouTube videos for the British Museum. And in my free time, I like to pretend I have some semblance of musical talent and like making really stupid things for the internet. And what you're about to watch is a combination of pretty much all those things. When I saw Rachel tweet that there was a slot available for this museum show-off, I DM'd her and said, look, I haven't really got anything to talk about, but the world's really dark at the moment and the museum sector's kind of being a dick to all of us. Can I make something that'll hopefully just put a smile on people's faces? And Rachel being Rachel said yes. So that's what you're about to watch, but I need to tell you a very, very abridged little story before you see it so you can logically get from smile on people's faces to what you're about to see. And that involves a very particular day in June last year, so 2019. The two elements you need to know about this day are, 1, I had a chronic case of earworm. I could not get this song out of my head for love nor money, and it was driving me slightly mad. And number 2 is that when I was walking through one of our open plan offices from one meeting to another, I saw one of my friends who was the project manager for the amazing exhibition we were working on at that time, Troy, Myth and Reality. And unlike her usual self, which is optimistic and bubbly, full of energy and humour, she looked pretty deflated. And I caught her eye and kind of gave her one of those looks, and she pretty much waved me on, knowing that I had another meeting about that exhibition she was running, and said, don't worry, I'm just having a week, I'll be back. And so for the rest of the day, I spent my time racking my brains trying to work out how could I make my friend feel better, whilst also having a competing song blaring in my head, just going da na na na, like just at me. It was really irritating. Anyway, coming up with nothing from that left-hand side of my brain that was trying to work out how to do something for my friend because of how loud the right-hand side of my brain with that song was, I decided why not combine the two. And I rewrote the lyrics to that song to be about the exhibition we were working on. And then I weighed up whether or not sending someone some written lyrics was a good enough cheer you up present, or whether or not I should download a karaoke version of that song and use our sound booth to lay down arguably the worst vocals anyone's ever recorded. And I went for the latter. And I ended up sending it to her, and she seemed to like it, which was nice, to the point at which she actually asked if she could send it to some other people who were also working on the exhibition and needed to pick me up. And it kind of became this little morale booster that we had. And I thought, well, it worked there. We may not all be working on an exhibition about the Trojans right now, but we are all in this together. And it's not a great time for anyone in the museum sector, but maybe, just maybe, this stupid little song will, you know, put a smile on your face, make you laugh, even if it's only at me. It'll probably only be at me. So yeah, I had to re-record the backing track because copyright infringement and all that, and I've added a couple more embellishments on top of that because I never know when to stop. But yeah, we'll get through this together. I'm thinking of you, and here's my really stupid song. This is a musical account of the Trojan War, as sung from the point of view of me, the Trojan horse. I've got some Greeks in me, one's from the Odyssey,
Mentally, I should be home instead of miles and miles from his marital bed. Achilles would be here, but that guy's dead. So you won't find that Greek in me. But I do have diabetes. Some other Greeks in me. Megas thrasimedy. Apollodorus said, Ekion's here too. Don't get attached because we'll soon have to adieu. Failed the landing, broke his neck in two when that Greek jumped out of me. The rest climbed out safely. Greater Ajax might be a little bit better than lesser Ajax. Bigger and stronger too. At least lesser Ajax never tried to fight a flock of ewes.
What's the worst that guy's gonna do?
As 10 years have gone by, the Trojans now have to die. As Zeus decreed, it's their destiny to be killed by the Greeks and me. Killed by these Greeks and me. Killed by these Greeks and me.
Oh, it's hot. So hot.
Thank you so much, Nick Harris. I didn't know that I needed to see a man dressed as a horse in a big grey beard singing a song until I saw that. Thank you very much indeed. Well, that's the end of the show. Thank you to all our acts. Thank you to you for joining us. Thank you for supporting Museums Showoff. Please keep an eye on Twitter and on the website for the date of the next Museums Showoff show. And in the meantime, take care. Stay safe, wear a mask. Times are really tricky. Let's support each other as much as possible. And yes, keep sharing the love. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.